Hey, what's going on everyone? Here's my review of the Master Grade RX-78-5 Gundam. Now this kit is pretty old, from 2003 actually, so it's pretty dated in comparison to modern kits. For reference, it came out after the RX-78 version Katoki, and 2 or 3 years before we started getting the 2.0 kits. I'll be reviewing this Master Grade Gundam in 4 categories: the build, the appearance, the articulation, and the gimmicks. I'll give each a score from 1 to 5, and at the end I'll tally everything up for an average score. Hopefully this review will help you decide if this kit is right for you. Part 1. The build. The initial build for this kit was actually pretty easy for a kit this old. There weren't any overly technical sections, and the instructions do a good job of explaining the build. Now on to the technical stuff. First off, there are screws in this build. Not a lot though, just 1 for each of the shoulders. I think this was when Bandai started to move away from screws in their kits. Surprisingly, aside from the token eye and camera stickers, there are only 2 sets of stickers on this kit. There are these gray squares on the ankles, and these white lines on the beam sabers. They both look good enough for me to forego painting. I expected a big chunk of these yellow vents to be stickers, but nope, they're all plastic. There are 4 instances of mandatory painting on this kit, the first being this gray part on the forearm, which comes in red. Thankfully, the red star part is raised up, so it's easy to paint around. Then there's this red part on the handle of the machine gun that comes in all white. Then there's these yellow dots on the fuel packs, and these yellow dots in the shoulders that need a dab of paint. With these touch-ups and some basic panel lining, you can have a pretty good looking RX-78-5, but as with all older kits, this guy only really shines when you put in some extra work detailing him up. The major touch-up I recommend is adding black to these yellow vents. I just got a black Gundam marker and filled the inside of each vent, then scraped off the excess paint. It's not too professional looking, but you get a much more consistent color than using faded panel lining pins. I did the same for all the joints on the legs, but in gray, as well as the vents on the backpack, but in yellow. The back of the shield comes in all white, by the way. I just used a gray Gundam marker on it, but it'd probably look a lot more consistent with some spray paint. The upper arm on this kit is made up of 2 halves, with a painfully obvious seam line on the front, so I recommend adding some cement and some sanding to diminish the impact. The build for this kit was actually pretty good for a kit its age. I'd say this would be a great kit for an intermediate builder. You know, someone looking to put in some more work than the initial snap build, but not ready to completely remodel something. However, the amount of painting and detailing required, plus the screws, can be a bit of a turn-off for most people. I'd give the build for this kit a 3.5 out of 5. Part 2. The appearance. For a 2003 kit, this guy looks great. I know I keep commenting on its age, but I just built the Master Grade Alex from 1999, and after a build like that, it's hard not to be wary of older kits. Regardless, I love the look of this kit. I really like all the colors going on. Thankfully, Bandai went minimalistic on the panel lines too, so it doesn't get too muddled. The proportions aren't perfect, but still great for its time. You get quite a few decals for this guy, a sheet of stickers for caution signs, and some dry transfers for model numbers, which are always appreciated. The bulk you get from this machine gun also really adds to the design. Honestly, I love the look of this kit, assuming you put in some detailing work, of course. Without the detail work, I see this kit getting about a 3.5 out of 5, but with the detailing, a 4.5. So I'll break even and give the appearance of this kit a 4 out of 5. Part 3. The articulation. Starting at the feet, well, there's nothing, just a solid brick of a foot. The ankle guard does move up and down though. The ankle itself is made up of 2 ball joints, so you can get some decent movement out of it. I'd say you get somewhere between a 90 and a 135 degree bend out of the legs. That's the benefit of an inner frame. The hips are the old style ball and socket type, so you get great kicks forward with a limited sideways movement and twist. The skirts move just as you would expect them to. Unfortunately, the back skirt is locked in place though. The chest is a brick. There is nothing going on here aside from a single ball joint connecting to the waist. The cockpit hatch does open up though. The shoulders are independent from the chest and the arms. The upper arm can move parallel to the ground, and hold it because of the screws tightening the joint up. The upper arm also twists 360 degrees. It's a pretty solid connection too. The elbow bend is weird. The forearm itself is actually on a peg, so you can turn it around 360 degrees. Depending on how you have the forearm, you get different mobility. If you have the arms sideways, you get about 90 degrees, but if you have them straight, you get close to a 180. The hands are on ball joints, and the fingers are the usual trigger finger split style hands. Notice how there's no peg in the hands, but I'll come back to that later. The neck is just a single ball joint connected to the chest, but you get a surprisingly large amount of mobility out of it. Finally, the backpack, which has thrusters that can move up and down. The articulation on this kit really hasn't aged too well. It wasn't too long after this that full inner frames started to become the norm. It fares a bit better than earlier kits, but still isn't up to par yet. I've got to give the articulation on this kit a middle score of 3 out of 5. Part 4, the gimmicks. First up, you get the basic beam sabers. You can hold them just fine despite not having pegs in the hands. Now, while I'm on the subject, if there was a kit killer for this kit, it'd be the hands. He really can't hold much of anything. And no, there are no interchangeable hands on this kit. One of the major gimmicks on this kit is the massive machine gun. But since there are no pegs, you've got no choice but to keep it stored on the backpack. I'll just say this now, without glue, you're never getting this machine gun held upright. You might be able to two-hand it, but it's a long shot. I actually used some of these wall hanger strips in place of the pegs. I cut out a small strip and stuck it to the inside of the hands to help it grip smaller weapons without locking it in place permanently. You get the standard RX-78 style beam rifle as well. It's a bit easier to hold than the machine gun, but still requires a lot of patience. Thankfully, the shield plugs into the arm securely, so there's no issues holding that up. The second major gimmick on this kit is the removable armor. You can remove the shoulder armor and take off machine guns on the arms. Then you can turn it around and remove the fuel tanks. The pieces come off extremely easy, making this transformation super simple. The gimmicks on this kit are kind of a mixed bag. Yeah, the lack of pegs ruins the weapons on this kit, but the removable armor works great. If you could find similar looking hands to replace these, I'm sure you'll have much more fun with these weapons. I'd give the gimmicks on this kit a middle score of 3 out of 5. Finally, the verdict. Time to add everything up for a final score. The build was a 3.5 out of 5. It's pretty simple for a 2003 kit, but requires some detailing to really shine. The appearance was a 4 out of 5. The kit looks great once you put some time into it. The articulation was a 3 out of 5. It's got some pretty interesting bends in the arms and some decent mobility all around, but it really shows its age in this regard. And lastly, the gimmicks, which get another 3 out of 5. The weapons look great and the transformation is super simple, but the lack of pegs really prevent you from doing anything fun. Tallying all that up and dividing, you get an average score of 3.375 out of 5, but I'd round that up to a 3.4 out of 5. In terms of a percentage, it receives the 67.5%. That honestly seems kinda harsh to me. I mean, I really like this kit. It was a fun build and it looks great on my shelf, but that's just it. Because of its lack of mobility and the lack of pegs, you really can't do much else with it besides put it on your shelf. Well, that's my review of the Master Grade RX-78-5 Gundam. Feel free to leave a comment about this kit, or what kit you want to see reviewed next. I'm more than happy to help out. Thanks for watching.